Hare Krishna. All glories to Śrīla Prabhupāda. All glories to the Sankirtan movement that he inaugurated under the order in the Western world, under the order of his spiritual master, His Divine Grace, Śrīla Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj. And Prabhupada is in a line of disciplic succession, going back to Lord Chaitanya in the 15th century. Lord Chaitanya, as we all know, appeared to deliver the most fallen people. This was his mission, and he was inspiring people to take up the process of spiritual life, beginning with the chanting of Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. This is the, as Lord Chaitanya described it, there is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way. Kalo nasteva, 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 gatir anyata. There is no other way except by chanting Hare Krishna mantra. I know there are lots of people that believe that they are spiritually minded, and it's to a certain extent, they have some...
No audio, Prabhu, no audio.
They have, to a certain extent, can you hear me now, everyone?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Thank you. To a certain extent, they have some piety, but actual realization of spiritual life, first of all, we're not the body. Aham Brahmasmi. We are the eternal servants of Krishna. But under the illusion of Maya, we think that we are this body, we are this mind, we are this nationality. We have all these coverings which keep us off the path of human life. Human life is meant specifically, Prabhupada will reveal that today in the Bhagavatam, for self-realization. What is the self? The self is the transcendental spirit soul that resides in this body of blood, pus, stool, and urine, which is afflicted with all kinds of miseries, as we've gone over before and we're all aware of, and we all experience every day. The body is a place of misery, where there is repeated birth and death. And while we're in this entanglement, we experience misery caused by our own physical body through different diseases and through the mind and its confusion. So this process of Krishna consciousness that we're practicing as a group with the Prabhupada Disciples Association is a service to help all of us rise above this conditioned state. And this is possible by the regular hearing and chanting of the philosophy in association with devotees, and through the daily practice of our sadhana, our chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, and the offering of food prasadam and distribution of prasadam to others. Here in Eastern Canada, we're starting a program. We're trying it anyway. We'll see what happens. As you know, or may not know, I've been a devotee since 1971. And I was having a conversation with a godbrother of mine who's in Berlin. When we joined in Hamilton, there were 19 people from this city that became Prabhupada disciples. 19. So that's a significant number, not very many, but relative to the ISKCON movement. And we operated the temple here in Hamilton, and then they moved us to Toronto, all of us, to help the Toronto temple, which was floundering. And so we went to Toronto, and at that time, I was the cook in the temple. I think I started out as the temple commander, and then I got promoted to being the cook. I didn't really know how to cook, but I started practicing how to make dal. And my friend Vishnu Dutt Prabhu, who is in Germany now, he's a very expert mridanga player, and he lived in India in the early 70s. He learned Bengali, and he associated a lot with the Chutananda. He joined, incidentally, when he was 14 years old. 14 years old. Took off from his parents and was associating with us we had a house, and we had all kinds of people that used to come around us because we were, somewhat materially famous even at a young age in the music industry. So anyway, he's in, I connected with him recently about 6 months ago. And he said, I told him that I was launching a prasadam soup line. We're working on bringing a prasadam soup line to distribution here in Ontario. And then hopefully it'll launch. And it's an interesting project because I've been working on this prasadam, and he reminded me of cooking this prasadam for 53 years. I've been working on this project of how to cook really good dal, offer it, and then distribute it to others. So this is something that we've undertaken. We're moving forward with it. Hopefully Krishna will bless us with this opportunity to distribute prasadam. This is the point, that I cook every day the prasadam and distribute it to as many people as I can. And some days we have 7, 8, 9 people come for dal and rice. Some days a couple, like that. But every day, pretty much, we make dal and rice and serve it to any guest that comes. You're supposed to go out to the front door and call out, is there any hungry man? And invite them to come to your residence and have prasadam, because prasadam is Krishna's mercy. And when people get the chance to take prasadam, Prabhupada explained that they begin their Krishna conscious process and will take birth as a human being. We had a fellow moved into the house a while back, Andrew, and I got to associate with him every day. He would hear me chant my rounds and hear Prabhupada's japa class. And he lived with us for 6 weeks, and then he had cancer treatments. So we were helping him with facilitating him to be here. And then about 3 weeks ago, he died. So, it was unfortunate, of course, that he passed away. It was an experience for us to go through that with him. But nonetheless, because he got prasadam, because he heard the holy name, because he had a chance to associate with devotees of Krishna, then his life is blessed. This is the idea, that a devotee, all of us, we're oceans of mercy. There are so few of us that live in this world, so few. And it is up to us to be ambassadors of Krishna consciousness for everyone we meet and everyone that is struggling in the material world to find happiness. to share that mercy with them. So today we're going to have our Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam class. I'm very much looking forward to that. I take shelter in it myself as an opportunity to keep fixed in Krishna consciousness in association with all of you. And I thank you very much, very, very much for attending the class and giving us a chance to build out a platform of Krishna consciousness for the global community that we hope to reach in the coming near future. All glories to Śrīla Prabhupāda, all glories to the Sankirtan movement, all glories to the assembled devotees here at the Prabhupada Disciples Association. Vinkat, Bhaktivedanta, our friend, please, if you could bring forward Jaya Radha Madhava, chanted by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. We'll carry on with our program. Back home, back to Godhead.
Sai. Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Jaya Radha Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Yaśodā-nandana Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Samad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupāda ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Namacharya Śrīla Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Sri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Sam Kund Radha Kund Giridham ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Navadvip Dham ki jai. Swami Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Ganga Mai ki jai. Jamuna Mai ki jai. Tulasi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Swami Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glories to the assembled Lord. All glories to the assembled Lord. Thank you very much.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya. Narayanam Namaskritya. Naram Cheva Narottamam. Naram Cheva Narottamam. Devim Saraswatim Vyasam. Devim Saraswatim Vyasam. Tato Jayam Mudirayet. Tato Jayam Mudirayet. One should utter the means of conquest, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, after offering respectful obeisances, 1, to the personality of Godhead Narayana, 2, to the Narayana Rishi, who is the supermost human being, 3, to the Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, then 4, to Śrīla Vyasadeva, the author. We are reading a text here, preliminary text, Canto 1, Chapter 2, text number 17. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Swakata Krishna Punyashravana Kirtanaham Hridyantasto Yabhadrani Vidunoti Suritsatam. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is also the Paramatma in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, does cleanse the desire from material enjoyment in the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge for hearing his message, Krishna's messages, which are themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Nashta prayeshu babadrishu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhakti rabhavati naistiki. By regular attendance in the Bhagavatam class or rendering service unto the pure devotees, all that is inauspicious in the heart of a candidate becomes destroyed almost to nil. And thus, loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental song, comes into being an irrevocable fact. We are reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. We are reading from the original 1962 version. Today we are reading from Canto 1, Chapter 1, text number 22 and 23. Page 122. All synonyms, translations, and purports by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda, Founder-Ācārya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, also known as the Krishna Consciousness Movement. Text 22. Tvam na sandarshitu datra dushtaram nishtitir shatam kalim sattvaharam pumsam karnadhara ivarnavam. Tvam, your goodness, na, unto us, sandarshitu, meeting, datra, by the providence, dushtaram, insurmountable, nishtitir shatam, for those desiring to cross over. Kalim, the age of Kali, Sattvaharam, that which deteriorates the good qualities, Pumsam, of the man, Karnadhara, captain, Ivarnavam, the ocean. Translation by Śrīla Prabhupāda. We think that your goodness is met by us by the will of providence, just to accept you as the captain of the ship, which desires to cross over the difficult ocean of Kali, which deteriorates all the good qualities of the human being. Purport by Śrīla Prabhupāda. This age of Kali is very much dangerous for all the human beings. The human life is simply meant for self-realization, but by the influence of this dangerous time, they have forgotten completely the aim of life. In this age, gradually, people will lose duration of life, memory, finer sentiments, strength, especially, and the list of anomalies for this age is given in the 12th canto of this great literature. As such, it is very difficult for those who want to utilize this life for self-realization. The question of self-realization is gradually being forgotten, and the people are too busy for sense gratification. Out of madness, they frankly say there is no need of self-realization because they do not know that this spot life is but a fragment of our journey towards self-realization. The system of education is meant for sense gratification, and one learned man thinks over it as he sees that the children of the age are being intentionally sent to the slaughterhouse of this age. Careful men, therefore, must be cautious of this dangerous age. If they at all want to cross over the dangerous ocean of Kali, they must follow the footprints of the sage of Naimisharanya and accept Sri Suta Goswami or his bona fide representative as the captain of the ship. The ship is the message of Lord Sri Krishna in the shape of the Bhagavad Gita or the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. And one must get on board of the ship captained by such expert as Sri Suta Goswami. That is the introductory note for the persons who want to get rid of the dangers of this age. Text number 23. Bruhi Yogeshwari Krishne Brahmanye Dharma Varmani Svam Kashtam Aduno Pete Dharmam Kam Sharanam Gataha. Bruhi, please tell Yogeshwari, the Lord of all mystic powers, Krishna, Lord Krishna, Brahmanye, the absolute truth, Dharma, religion, Varaman, protector, Svam, own, Kashtam, abode, Aduna, nowadays, Apete, having gone away, Dharamam, religion, come unto whom, Sharanam, shelter, Gataha, gone. Translation by His Divine Grace Śrīla Prabhupāda. Please let us know as to whom the religious principles have taken shelter at the present moment, when Sri Krishna, the absolute truth and the master of all mystic powers, has had departed for his own abode. Purport by His Divine Grace. Religion is the prescribed codes enunciated by the personality of Godhead himself. Whenever there is gross misuse of the principles of religion, the Supreme Lord appears himself to restore religious principles. In the Bhagavad Gita also, the same declaration is there, and hearing the sages of the Naimisharanya inquires on the same principles. The reply for this question is given later on, that Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is the transcendental sound representative of the personality of Godhead. And as such, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is the full representation of transcendental knowledge and religious principles. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the first canto, first chapter of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, in the matter of question by the sages. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmiritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. I offer my respectful obeisances. We offer our respectful obeisances unto our spiritual master, Śrīla Prabhupāda, who has opened my eyes, who has opened our eyes from the darkness of ignorance with a torchlight of transcendental knowledge. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Bhakti Siddhanta Shishyaya Bhaktivedanta Namine Prasannaya Prashantaya Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Bhagavad Vandanam Khadyam Guru Vandana Purvakam Kshiram Sharkara Yuktam Kadatehi Visheshataha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrindam Shri Rup Shri Sanatana Bhatta Raghunatha Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunatha. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. This particular verse by the great sages of Naimisharanya to Sutta Goswami is a very significant verse of respect for the speakers. This is quite important because we see in this age of Kali, it is very difficult for people to make progress in spiritual advancement and self-realization. Prabhupada describes here the question of self-realization is gradually being forgotten, and the people are too busy for sense gratification. Out of madness, they frankly say, there's no need of self-realization because they do not know that this spot life is but a fragment of our journey towards self-realization. The system of education is meant for sense gratification. In other words, basically, in the age of Kali Yuga, in general, there is very little interest in the pursuit of self-realization. To understand who am I, what is the soul, what is the position of the soul, why are we here in this world, why are we suffering here, what is life after that, what is God, where does God live, what is the kingdom of God, all of these natural questions which arise for intelligent human beings. There is this unbridled pursuit of sense gratification. Anyone who sees the current media with newspapers, radio, television, internet, computers, there is a constant stream of propaganda for sense gratification, constantly. That is why we see in the Vedas, the Prabhupada used to often quote, Tamasima Jyotirgamaya, come out of the darkness and go to the light. What is that light? We see here, it's a very important point. Prabhupada describes Careful men, therefore, must be cautious of this dangerous age. And if they at all want to cross over the dangerous ocean of Kali, they must follow the footprints of the sages of Naimisharanya and accept Shrita Sutta Goswami or his bona fide representative as the captain of the ship. So the question may come up, what is the ship? Prabhupada explains, the ship is the message of Lord Sri Krishna in the shape of Bhagavad Gita or the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, and one must get on board of the ship captained by such an expert as Sri Sutta Goswami. So this is quite significant. In other words, one must accept the guidance of a self-realized bona fide representative of Sri Sutta Goswami, a bona fide Acharya. We see in the next text, Prabhupada describes about the prescribed codes of religion. We see in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam itself, Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavati pranitam, that real religion is enacted by God himself, by the personality of Godhead, according to time, place, and circumstances, different avatars or incarnations, different great personalities or empowered saints and prophets or representatives, acharyas, teachers, they come. Lord Krishna comes, Lord Rama comes, Lord Jesus Christ, Prophet Muhammad, great acharyas like Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya, Vyasatirtha, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the six Goswamis, Baladev Vidyabhushana, Vishwanath Chakravarti, Bhaktivedanta Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, our Śrīla Prabhupāda, and so many other great acharyas. They come to deliver that message of the personality of Godhead. There's a very important point in this purport here on page 124. In the last two sentences, Prabhupada describes, in the Bhagavad Gita also, the same declaration is there. And herein, the sage of the Naimisharanya inquires on the same principles. We see in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains why he comes. Why does God come? Yesterday, we were reading in Bhagavad Gita how one class of dushkritina or envious persons, they declare that God cannot come to this world. Of course, they cannot give any valid reason or credible explanation why God cannot come. But here in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, we see the explanation why he comes. Bhagavad Gita describes, Paritranaya sadhunam, vinachaya cha dushkritam, dharmasam stapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. That Krishna comes to protect the pious and kill the miscreants, the demons. And he appears millennium after millennium. Yada yada hi dharmasya dlanira bhavati bharata abhyuttanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham. So why would he come? He explains, whenever there is an increase in irreligion and a decrease in the bona fide following of dharma or religion, at that time, tadatmanam srijamyaham, I come. In the age of Kali Yuga, Krishna has come in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his direct incarnation. We see in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the beginning, in the Adi Lila, chapter 1, Krishnadas Kaviraj goes to elaborate explanation in the first 20 verses. Very nicely explains the reasons for the appearance of Lord Chaitanya and his principal associates, the Panchatattva. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, Lord Nityananda Prabhu, Lord Advaita Prabhu, Srivasacharya. Like that, the Panchatattva has come to deliver the message for this age of Kali. Kali Yuga Yuga Dharma Namer Prachar Tatilagi Pita Varna Chaitanya Avatar. In previous ages, it was a very long process. Kritayadhyayato Vishnum Tretayam Yajato Make. In Satya Yuga, when people used to live for 100,000 years, the golden age, everybody was Paramamsa. Everybody was a self-realized soul. And the method of self-realization was a very long yogic meditation. The circumstances were very favorable. Kritayadhyayato Vishnum Tretayam Yajato Makehi. In the following age, the silver age, people used to live for 10,000 years. What was the method? Yajato Make, very elaborate fire sacrifices with chanting of Vedic mantras by very qualified brahmanas. But in this age, that is very difficult. So the previous age to Kali Yuga, the Dwapara age people, the Bronze Age, people used to live for 1,000 years. In that age, very elaborate deity worship was prescribed. We know in South India, there are many old deities like Tirupati, also in Sri Rangam, Rameshwaram, so many places, very old deities, which go back all the way to Dwapara Yuga. For those of you who may have been in India in a city called Madras or Chennai, there's a big deity of Parthasarathi, a deity of Krishna and Arjuna, very tall deity, 8 foot tall, very big deity, beautiful deity. One time we were visiting there and the Ramanuja follower explained to us this deity was from the Dwapara Yuga, has been worshipped there since the Dwapara Yuga. So in that age, there were very elaborate deity worship with all kinds of golden vessels and silver vessels and all kinds of very elaborate ceremonies. In the age of Kali Yuga, it is very difficult to maintain that. So what is the process in this age? Yadapnoti tadapnoti kalo samkirtya keshava. In the Vishnu Purana, it is described that in this age, whatever was achieved in the other ages, whatever process was given in the Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, the Satya Yuga, the Treta Yuga, the Dwapara Yuga, very easily can be done, can be achieved, Kalo Hari Kirtana, by chanting the name of Hari. Everyone here is familiar with Chaitanya Charitamrita, how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has explained this shloka from the Brihad Naradiya Purana. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Eva Kevalam. Kalau Nastyeva, Nastyeva, Nastyeva Gatiranyata. That in this age, the means of self-realization is chant the name of Hari, chant the name of Hari, chant the name of Hari. There is no other way. There was an interesting event. Śrīla Prabhupāda was taking a morning walk in Los Angeles, in one of the parks near Beverly Hills. And Swarup Damodar, Karandar, Keshava, so many senior devotees were there. And I remember at one point, Prabhupada stopped and he stared at everybody and he chanted that sloka, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Ibi Kevalam. And many times on his walks, Prabhupada would do this. He would chant that sloka. But why? If we study in Chaitanya Charitamrita, how Krishnadas Kaviraj has explained, because in this age of Kali Yuga, it is not possible to take the path of self-realization or spiritual realization by the method of yoga or karma or fruitive activities or jnana yoga or philosophical speculation. These paths are too difficult in this age. In this age, simply by this chanting of Hare Krishna, one can achieve all perfection. Everything can be given there. So it is quite significant here. The advice is given to take shelter that Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is the transcendental sound representative of the personality of Godhead. And as such, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is the full representation of transcendental knowledge and religious principles. We've often discussed one of our great previous Acharya, Srinath Chakravarti, who wrote the first Gaudiya commentary on Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam called Chaitanya Manjusha. He wrote a verse in the beginning, summarizes the philosophy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In that verse, he describes Aradhyo Bhagavan Brajesha Tanoyas Tadama Vrindavanam, that the abode of Lord Krishna in Vrindavan is non-different than him. It is worshipable. Then he goes on, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Pramanamamalam, that the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is the topmost evidence. It is the topmost literature, because it is explained here, is the transcendental sound representative of the personality of Godhead. Anybody who has come to these readings and discussions knows Vishwakarma Prabhu often refers to Prabhupada's teachings as the Vani incarnation. Because the Vani incarnation, it is explained here, this is the direct representation. It says Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is the full representation of transcendental knowledge and religious principles. So this is quite significant, because as we've seen in this first chapter of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, the sages of Naimisharanya asked Sutta Goswami 6 questions. First question, what is the ultimate benefit for mankind? The second question, what is the essence of all scriptures? Third question they asked, for what reason did the Lord take his birth from Mother Devaki? Fourth question, describe the wonderful deeds of the Lord when he assumed the forms of Brahma, Rudra, etc., for the purpose of creating, maintaining, and destroying the universe. Number 5, fully describe the activities of Lord Hari's incarnations within this universe. Number 6, this is the question discussed here. Where has religion taken shelter after Krishna has retired to his own abode? So the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam describes in very elaborate detail the answers to all of these very important questions, because the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam was recommended by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the topmost literature. Anybody who is a little familiar with the life history of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as given by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj knows that in the Chaitanya Charitamrita itself, there are so many different references from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. But the argument is sometimes given by other Vaishnavas or other persons, well, in this age, people should study Vedanta Sutra. Well, that is very nice, but who is qualified to study Vedanta Sutra? In order to properly Vedanta Sutra, one has to have good knowledge of Sanskrit grammar, Sanskrit logic, and so many different disciplines which take a long time to master. So in this age, it is recommended by great authorities, such as Jiva Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, and all the great acharyas to study this topmost literature, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, because it describes all the activities of Lord Krishna. But the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam has to be heard from a person like Sutta Goswami. We see in text number 22 that the great sages are saying to Sutta Goswami, we think that your goodness is met by us by the will of providence, just to accept you as the captain of the ship which desires to cross over the difficult ocean of Kali, which deteriorates all the good qualities of the human being. And Prabhupada mentions in his purport, careful men, therefore, must be cautious of this dangerous age of Kali. If they all want at all to cross over the dangerous ocean of Kali, they must follow the footprints of the sages of Naimisharanya and accept Sri Suta Goswami, or his bona fide representative as the captain of the ship. So this is quite significant because in this age, there's a very strong tendency for upstarts, misleaders, cheaters, bluffers, pseudo-gurus, self-appointed gurus, and all kinds of nonsense people who do not represent the original Acharya, who do not follow in the footsteps of Sri Suta Goswami, and who try to present themselves as authorities. Very dangerous situation, because many innocent people tend to be misled by such pretenders. There's constant wave of the 3 Ps. Somebody may say, well, what's the 3 Ps? What is that? Posers, pretenders. Very difficult. Posers and pretenders are there. One must be aware and take shelter of the actual Acharya, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda, who still is the current Acharya of the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, the bona fide disciplic succession of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's the empowered representative chosen by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to come to this planet. A Nitya Siddha Mahabhagavata, an eternally perfected soul from the spiritual world who's come here to deliver that message of the disciplic succession and present the teachings in a very practical, simple way so that anybody from any part of the world can perfect their lives and go on, make progress on the path back to home, back to Godhead. Incidentally, this particular verse that we're reading here, Tvam na sandarshitu datra, in Vrindavan in 1976, we started to chant this verse and a few other Sanskrit verses known as Prabhupada Stotram. There were 5 verses in Sanskrit that had been composed by a devotee named Sri Anantaram Shastri. He was a Vaishnava that came from a village in North India, and he came to Mayapur in March of 1976. And before the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam class, he used to recite these verses in Sanskrit. So later on in Vrindavan, the Gurukul teachers, we started to recite these verses at the Guru Puja time. And Prabhupada in 1977 told me, and we recite these 5 verses along with this verse number 22. We would bring the Gurukul children before Śrīla Prabhupāda and chant these Sanskrit verses just before the Guru Puja. And in 1977, Prabhupada told me that these verses should be chanted by all the devotees. That if the devotees chant this, they will get good sneha, or good affection for the spiritual master. Unfortunately, that was never introduced, but it still can be done. These verses are still available. But this particular text, Tvamna Sandarshitu Datra Dushtaram Nishtitir Shatam, is one of the verses that was also recommended by His Divine Grace Śrīla Prabhupāda to be recited. There's another verse later on in the first canto, Bhagavad Bhagavatas Tirtha Bhuta Swayam Vibho, which a Tirti Kurvanti Tirtani, that those great personalities, great saintly persons, they purify the places of pilgrimage by their spiritual power. So some of these are available. We will make those available a little later on, so those devotees who are interested in following this practice recommended by His Divine Grace Śrīla Prabhupada can take this up. So we will end this discussion, turn over the floor to Vishwakarma Prabhu, and open the floor for discussion soon. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. All glories to Śrīla Prabhupada. Thank you very much, Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, for your explanation of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, which is the essence of our process of Krishna consciousness. I wanted to comment on the purport. This is a timeless literature. Sometimes people are interpreting Prabhupada's books to be something that he simply spoke into a dictaphone. This is a analysis by some people that Prabhupada did not actually write these books, but he just spoke them, and then they were put into a book format by his disciples. This Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam that we're reading from was done on a typewriter, just so everybody knows. That Prabhupada, when he did this book in 1962 or earlier, he did it with a typewriter. There was no dictaphone. That dictaphone was introduced by Gargamuni Prabhu to him in 1966 to facilitate the writing, so he could move forward with a team of his disciples and produce his books. So this is a timeless literature. It is not a literature that is, the term has been called post-Prabhupada books. And recently, Vinkat Prabhu exposed us to some understandings from other people that the books that Prabhupada has produced were dated. They have a dated point of view. And so the comments that Prabhupada was making were not relevant to the modern times that we're in, but these literatures are timeless, they're eternal. And when we read them, we can feel the transcendental potency of them coming to us by the mercy of the captain of the ship, which is Śrīla Prabhupāda, to cross over the ocean of material suffering. These verses are phenomenal, by the way. They're so moving. I can only relate back to our early years when we used to, that's all we had were these books, the Bhagavatams that he brought in his suitcase from India, and he brought them to America. And these were the books that we used to learn about Krishna consciousness. And they invoke such great emotion in myself, actually, great emotion of appreciation, how Prabhupada blessed us with this transcendental knowledge. And there are a few points that I wanted to bring up just quickly. One is, Prabhupada made a very interesting point here in this purport in text 22. He says, the system of education is meant for sense gratification, and one learned man thinks over it as he sees it, that the children of the age are being intentionally sent to the slaughterhouse of this age. A slaughterhouse is a very violent, it is a very dangerous, horrific place. So why would Prabhupada use the term Ram Raghava of a slaughterhouse when he refers to education? Because education without Krishna consciousness is useless, completely useless. Like Jesus said, what profits a man if he gains the whole world but loses the immortality of his soul? I'm paraphrasing. So what is the good of academic achievements, of material knowledge, without knowledge of spiritual life? There is no value in it. It's useless. And at the time of death, it's all dissipated into the annals of time. It has no value. So when Prabhupada's using the term slaughterhouse, he's saying that this is killing people, not educating them. It's killing their consciousness, their ability in the human form of life to become successful in spiritual understanding of their position as the eternal servants of Krishna. And this is the war that we're at. Look at the way the schools are. They have billions and billions of dollars they're investing in these universities to get a PhD. For what? PhD means the plow department. That's what Prabhupada explained it to be, the plow department. It's useless. We have no value in academic studies outside of Krishna consciousness. This is, someone's written here, Bhaktivedanta writes, permanent head damage. Thank you. This is what PhD means. So we should not be enamored by people that have a PhD. Even in our movement, some of these devotees, they get these academic credentials, but are they chanting their rounds? I don't know. I'd sooner be around a group of simple brahmacharis or brahmacharinis that are going on Sankirtan and chanting their rounds and following the regulated principles and trying to be good devotees, humble like Jayananda was. That's what a big devotee is. Big devotee means a humble servant, not someone who has money, not somebody who has material credentials with education. These things are all superficial to the actual principle of surrender. This is what, and because we're in a very critical age, Prabhupada mentions here, spot life. Think about that word, spot life. We get so enamored who we are, who we think we are, but how long will we be here? Prabhupada's explained it here very, very nicely. Spot life. That means in a fraction of a second, in eternity, in this body, you appear and then you're gone. No one thinks, oh, I'll die. Just like I can't imagine in my own particular life how old I am. It's absolutely extraordinary. Because all you do is when you hear that, oh, someday you'll be an old man. You think, not me. But someday, that's before you know it. A spot life will take place and you'll disappear from this planet. So it's very important that we take this process very seriously. I wanted to move forward here just quickly and read a section from the Bhagavad Gita, just to extend the discussion about divine and demoniac natures. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya tadiskratam. That Krishna appears to deliver the pious and destroy the miscreants. So this is something that we're in a situation right now where we're on the verge of possibly a nuclear war. And this is text 9, chapter 16, divine and demoniac natures. And I wanted to read from that, Vinkat, if you could bring it up. This is a very important section of the Gita. I remember it vividly throughout my studies of Krishna consciousness as something relevant to this time and age. Translation. Following such conclusions, the demoniac, who are lost to themselves and who have no intelligence, engage in unbeneficial, horrible works meant to destroy the world. Meant to destroy the world. Purport. The demoniac are engaged in activities that will lead the world to destruction. The Lord states here that they are less intelligent. The materialists who have no concept of God think that they are advancing. But according to the Bhagavad Gita, they are unintelligent and devoid of all sense. They try to enjoy this material world to the utmost limit and therefore always engage in inventing something for sense gratification. Such materialistic inventions are considered to be advancement of human civilization, but the result is that people grow more and more violent and more cruel to animals and cruel to other human beings. They have no idea how to behave towards one another. Animal killing is very prominent amongst demoniac people. Such people are considered the enemies of the world because ultimately they will invent or create something which will bring destruction to all. Indirectly, this verse anticipates the invention of nuclear weapons, of which the whole world is today very proud. At any moment, war may take place, and these atomic weapons may create havoc. Such things are created solely for the destruction of the world, and this is indicated here. Due to godlessness, such weapons are invented in human society. They are not meant for the peace and prosperity of the world. Just see, here Prabhupada in the Bhagavad Gita, in this very, very important verse, gives us an insight into where this material world, this modern material society is heading for some kind of tragic end, unless we take to Krishna consciousness and bring people to the platform of understanding. We are the eternal servants of Krishna, not members of the slaughterhouse of material knowledge, which is sending people to hell without any reservation. This karmic, collective karmic circumstance that we're currently in is affecting everyone. And this is something that we're trying to do as ambassadors. We are ambassadors of the pure devotee, Śrīla Prabhupāda. It is our duty, even though there's only a few of us, hardly anybody. We're insignificant. We're in a very difficult situation. But irrespective of that, we've got to keep trying and trying and trying to work together cooperatively to spread the Krishna consciousness movement according to Prabhupada's instructions and Lord Chaitanya's mission to bring the holy name forward as the main focal point of people's existence. Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, please, if you could comment.
Yeah, this is a very important point. Śrīla Prabhupada in 1977 was in Orissa in January of 1977, and he saw on a morning walk that different soldiers were marching of the Indian Army. And Prabhupada made a comment that these armies all around the world, they're accumulating so many weapons, so many ways of destroying, and someday this will all be used. Another time, another place in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Prabhupada says that if the modern civilization keeps us, this Hiranyakashipu civilization of exploiting women, children, and exploiting the natural resources, killing animals, and being against Brahminical culture, they will suffer greatly in the future. Their civilization will be destroyed. Now, people may say that this is like doom and gloom, but we see at the present moment that at any time, this scenario that Prabhupada describes in the Bhagavad Gita, just like such as was read, or some of his comments of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, at any given time, things could flare up in a major conflict. There's regional conflicts, but there's great worry because the mentality is due to godlessness, due to going away from the orders of God. Now, people may say, well, we have our different religious principles or our different faiths here and there. Well, that's nice and good, but the basic fundamental principles of religion are not being observed. There's official religiosity, but the basic fundamental principles of no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication, no unnecessary killing of animals. This is not being observed because these principles are fundamental principles described in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, the basic principles of Dharma as given by Krishna himself. And nowadays, there's all kinds of interpretations of different religious sects, different religious groups turning into complete chaos. And we see the same phenomena affecting the Krishna consciousness movement, that we see certain devotees who are educated, intelligent, and articulate, but yet they present the philosophy in such a way as to attack the Acharya, Śrīla Prabhupāda, misrepresenting the Acharya's teachings, because according to them, it doesn't conform to modern thinking, to the modern viewpoint of scholars and researchers and academics. Who cares what this personality, Śrīla Prabhupada, was an especially empowered person who within a very short time brought the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu all over the world. He brought these teachings and presented a very practical way of applying these teachings as such that any person in any part of the world, regardless of their condition, can make substantial progress towards self-realization. But we see that ambitious persons and envious persons who do not accept the personality of the greatness of this personality, Śrīla Prabhupada, trying to misinterpret his teachings and find fault with his views, which are not in line with materialistic thinking or so-called modern thinking. So one has to be very careful, very, very careful not to criticize or to minimize the importance of Śrīla Prabhupada and his glorious teachings.
Yes, excellent. This principle, it's like the modern day perspective, which is changing everything, even in the educational system. Here in Canada, there's quite a bit of conflict between different groups because they're teaching nowadays that it's acceptable to be a transgender, for example. They're saying that people should be more accepted. What's the term they use? Inclusive. Should be inclusive, so that people can, be free to do what they want. So you can be a gay, you can be a transgender. It's they have that expression LBGTQ, whatever it is. So here we find that people that are trying to apply this principle to Prabhupada's teachings is very, very minimalistic and very shallow. They missed the point. And recently I was exposed to this by our godbrother Bhaktivedanta, that someone had written items like that, minimizing Prabhupada's, even though they have a PhD, minimizing Prabhupada's position as a transcendental author of the sacred Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam in its pure representation, and misrepresenting things that Prabhupada said as being backward or not in pace with the modern world. We have an expression, post-Prabhupada books. The whole principle of that is that they're rewriting the books to suit the modern times and the modern perverted philosophies that are being propagated by these mad people that live in this world. So I wanted to ask Ram Raghava if he could please further comment on this destruction of the human society by the materialistic leaders. Hari Bol. Ram Raghava, please.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Obeisances to everyone. Regarding the 2 points, I would like to add a comment. One thing about the insanity of this transgenderism. First of all, instead of teaching people that we're spirit souls and not this material body, so I am actually seeing cases where teenagers are being taught that if you are born in a female body but you think you're a man, they can make that change happen, and they're giving them hormones so that their bodily characteristics start to change. So it's really, and then they're even doing surgical operations to change the anatomy of their body. So it's complete insanity. I thought of that when you were talking about the slaughterhouse of modern education. And also, I'd like to share something in the purport for the first verse we read. In the purport, it says, in this age, gradually people will lose duration of life. So thinking about the modern way of thinking, when I was in high school and in early years of college, they were estimating that the lifespan for males was around 72 and for females around 76 years. And they said that was better increased from earlier in the century because of antibiotics and whatever modern medical advancement. And now, according to the latest statistics on the CDC website, it's gotten a little bit higher. They're saying for males it's around 73 or 74, and for females it's about 77, 78, something like that. But this is another thing that when people will read this in Śrīla Prabhupāda's books, they will say, well, actually we're increasing the duration of life. But the real fact of the matter is that if you take into account how many living entities are being slaughtered by abortion, if you take that into account, the average lifespan is much less than what they're calculating, because they're not using the statistic of the number of abortions that are happening every year. So we have to always remember that we can't get sucked into the short-sighted calculations or imperfect calculations of the material scientists. So we should always remember that when we read Śrīla Prabhupāda's books. He was not subject to the defects that the modern scientists are subject to, which we learn in the Ishopanishad. The first book I read was the Ishopanishad, and I remember I was amazed at how Śrīla Prabhupada pointed out the 4 defects of a human being. Mm-hmm. And I always try to remember that. Even sometimes there's this one devotee who is doing this other website called Chakra. And many years ago, I kind of got into an argument with her. She was trying to say that, they're along the same line of what Bhaktivedanta had pointed out, that these are dated. And it was very frustrating because I couldn't understand why. The first principle we learned is that our knowledge is imperfect. So if we just remember that, we won't, be fooled.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Ram Raghava, our esteemed godbrother. I wanted to ask our colleague, Bhaktivedanta, his opinion on the slaughterhouse of the university system, also being a aerospace engineer. Bhaktivedanta, if you could comment, please.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Sure.
Thank you.
So, yes, I definitely, in fact, even before I got into Krishna Consciousness, I was researching about this. There are many authors who have spent their whole lives looking into this phenomenon of slaughterhouse. Actually, the education system is more of a brainwashing system. So there's an author, John Taylor Gatto. He's written many books about this phenomenon, where kids are basically brainwashed to stop being able to think. So the curiosity and all that we have as children, it's gradually just phased out. And yeah, I mean, this was something very interesting for me. And what's interesting to note is that people who are a little more in power, they send their kids to different schools where they teach them a different set of subjects. They teach them about philosophy, about logic, all these kind of things. There's like the trivium and quadrivium. There's these subjects in Greek. I think it's the Greek system of education or something. So I mean, whereas for the rest of the people, it's a totally different education system. It's more of what do you call it? Vocational training. Training for you to be cogs in the machine. So that's the main point about that this author wrote about, and we can see that it's all like planned that way. Actually, we know like the Industrial Revolution. There's this Industrial Revolution which happened, 19th century, and people were promised that machines are gonna optimize everything, and we're gonna work. We're just gonna be able to work for like 2 hours a day or something, and the rest of the time you have leisure. But actually, if you see, we work harder than ever before, and partly due to the financial system and all this kind of so many different things, the schemes that they have to keep us constantly like in the rat race, right? So I mean, it's all just the whole system is designed to keep us just constantly like a rat, like just reaching for the cheese or whatever, and not looking up and thinking like, what is the purpose of human life? So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of interesting quotes and from this purport, and also from whatever all of you spoke today. I was reminded of that. Thank you.
That was a very good point, Ram Raghava, that Vinkat brought up, which is brainwashing. That we were accused of being brainwashed. I was accused of brainwashing people by the Attorney General of Ontario. He came actually to the temple on Avenue Road and told me I was brainwashing people by teaching them about Krishna consciousness. We had a group in Ontario called COMA, the Council on Mind Abuse, and they accused us of brainwashing our members. They said, well, if you get people up early in the morning to go to Mangal Arti, that's called sleep deprivation. If you feed them a vegetarian diet that is without meat, then that also weakens their bodily functions. So sleep deprivation and food deprivation. You get them to repeat the same thing over and over and over again. That's mind control. That was called coma. And there was a fellow, Ted Patrick. I debated him at the University of Toronto. Ted Patrick, he called me a terrorist. Oh, there was about 1,000 students there. I was on the stage with him, with our devotees. We did a kirtan, and I gave a talk, and then he called me a terrorist. I go, I'm a terrorist, you're a terrorist. That's what I told him. You're a terrorist. You took one of our devotees out of the temple, Rudrani Dasi. There was a huge national article that came out, 700 articles against the temple. They came and stole one of our devotees, kidnapped her, Rudrani Devi Dasi, and took her to Nova Scotia. And they hid her in a hotel in Kent, Nova Scotia. A motel, I should say. And they tried to make her normal again. So they said, we're going to make her normal again. We're going to get her to watch TV. Oh, really? watch TV so you're a normal person. Get her to try to eat meat again to make her a normal person. And in this way, they considered we were brainwashing people. Sleep deprivation, and all these other things that they presented as arguments against the Vaishnava lifestyle. What nonsense. Prabhupada said this, yes, we are brainwashing people. We're washing their brains of all the sinful activities that they're performing every day that are sending them to hell. That is the reality of the Kali Yuga. We are all in a very difficult situation right now in the year 2023. Again, on the verge of nuclear war at any moment, and at any time we can die at any moment in this spot life. So it's critical for us to come together in a positive Krishna conscious way and advance the mission of Lord Chaitanya as a group. Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, please, if you could comment.
Yeah, I think this is a very important point because the propaganda of the atheists has always been against the devotees. This is not something that started in 1970 or 1960. This is eternally like that. In the Vishnu Purana, it is described, Dvabhuta sargalokesmin deva asura evacha, that there is always two classes of being. There's the sura, or those who are pious, devotees of God, and the asura, those who are against the existence of God. So those people that were against the practices of the Krishna consciousness movement, this is a manifestation of the demonic mentality. And we see that these people support abortion, they support all kinds of nonsensical, irreligious connections between men and women. They support all forms of intoxication. They support these ghastly, horrible slaughterhouses. There's a very good reason why they never show the slaughterhouses on TV. Why? Because people would be horrified how they treat the animals. People treat their dogs and their cats better than they treat the cow. Why? Because the demonic, it says in the Bhagavad-gita, na satyam tishu vidyate, that there's no truth to be found in them. This demonic civilization of exploiting the animals, because people are wondering, oh, why is there a war? Why is there so much conflict? Because you're killing the animals. You show no respect for God's creatures. You're unnecessarily slaughtering the animals just for the satisfaction of your palate, when you can very easily eat grains, beans, rice, fruits, vegetables, nice, natural, healthy foodstuffs, milk, without this unnecessarily slaughter of the animals. And the karma for that, and there's periodical wars where people die. There's material nature inflicts suffering upon human society on account of disobedience of the laws of God. That's why there's superheat, super cold, war, pestilence, famine, earthquakes. All of these things happen because of disobedience of the order of God. That is why. And those people that are against the practices of the Krishna consciousness movement, whether they are devotees criticizing the Acharya from their academic scholarly platform, or whether they're devotees against the order of the Acharya, these people are also against the progress of the Krishna consciousness movement. And one should be very intelligent and learn to discriminate who are such persons. Do not become victim or become victimized by the propaganda of such persons. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Yes, this is called collective karma. The collective karma of the human society. So many different demoniac activities are going on every day unchecked. And I was discussing this with Dr. Trevor yesterday, that this collective karma is an offense against, it's against Mother Nature. And this is against Mother Nature. And eventually Mother Nature will retaliate back And as a result, we're at the risk of a potential nuclear war. We're moving close to the end of the class. I wanted to make a comment here. If you get a chance, everyone, you can go online. You can see Ted Patrick, who was the head of the brainwashing movement against us, the claims of brainwashing. And he on this debate he was having with a devotee of ours, he goes, they treat their children like better. They treat their children like better than we treat our babies. I'm trying to remember the quote. He goes, they make their children eat off the floor. This is what his reason was, that they eat off the floor. Yeah, there it is there. Ted Patrick versus the cults. There he is. They treat their children better than we treat our dogs and cats. So this material world, this material world is a very difficult place. And the fact of the matter is that they're claiming that because we get our children to eat off the floor on wax paper, that's what he was saying. Because back in the day, we used to put wax paper on the floor and we would serve out the prasadam, dal and rice and sabji, to facilitate, because we didn't have a bamboo or not banana leaves. You know, in India, they put the banana leaves down and then they go along and they feed you on the banana leaves. And then after you take the banana leaves, you discard them and they would be fed to the cows. So Ted Patrick was saying that we were treating our children worse than dogs and cats because we feed them on wax paper off the floor. That's the madness of this Kali Yuga and the people that are propagating the irreligiosity of the modern society. So we're at 11:30. Any last comment, Yaśodā Prabhu, before we go to the kirtan?
Maybe we can ask if there is any significant other comments and questions before we close the program. I guess not.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Don't forget, we'll be back online on this coming Wednesday evening, Eastern Standard Time, with the Chaitanya Charitamrita class, beginning at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Canada, the East Coast, and America, East Coast. And we want to thank you all for participating today in this class, online class. And we look forward to seeing you again on Wednesday evening. And please tell your friends that are interested in becoming Krishna conscious to also join us in the class and participate in these lively discussions as we continue to develop this media program to bring Krishna consciousness into thousands of homes throughout the world by the mercy of Śrīla Prabhupāda and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Śrīla Prabhupāda, all glories to the Sankirtan devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If you could please bring forward this beautiful kirtan. Remember, this kirtan, Vinkat, was recorded in the early 60s, and we didn't even have a mridanga back then. So when you hear the drum being played, it's actually a bongo that Prabhupada's playing, but it's still beautiful even without the mridangam because of Prabhupada's transcendental potency as the pure devotee of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Rama Rama Hare. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajakacarya Astatara Sata Sri Śrīmad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Śrīla Prabhupāda Ki.
Jai.
Jai. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Aprakrita in Montreal. You're doing wonderful service. Thank you for attending every class. You're amazing.
Thank you very much to do this meeting. This one today was the best one. Very best one.
Vanchakalpa
Tarubhyascha
Kripasindhubhyacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
All glories
Jai
to
Prabhupada.
Prabhupada, everyone. Thank you,
Thank you, sir.
everyone.